things that we're going to cover today. So there was a beep then because we're starting to record this session. So welcome everybody to the PlaceShapers launch of our strategic plan for the next 3 years. We're very excited about it, and we're going to spend the next hour talking about those plans for the next 3 years and talking about how you can get involved and make the most of your membership of PlaceShapers, and hopefully get you to think a little bit maybe about how you can offer support to deliver the plan, because all of what we're doing is centered around PlaceShapers and reflects a lot of the things you've told us that are important for you and your organization. So by helping us, you're also helping deliver your own organization's objectives. I'm going to do a few minutes opening remarks and then hand over to Catherine, who's going to take us through the strategic plan in a bit more detail. And then we've deliberately left lots of time at the end for question and comment. You'll see in the bottom of your screen, unfortunately, there's too many people for us to be able to have interaction verbally because there's too many people to be able to see who's raising their hands and what have you. But be really good if you could put your comments or questions, as well as any weather forecasting you want to do, in the chat at the bottom, or the questions and answer. And when Catherine's finished, we'll make sure we pick up as many of those as time allows us to do. We've worked really hard, I'm sure you know this already, over the last 3 years on delivering the vision of PlaceShapers, which is about putting place shaping at the heart of decision making. And over that time, the last 3 years, we've been busy meeting lots of politicians. We influenced the 2025 spending review. We launched a new learning program and a learning hub, and we've been very busy showcasing the amazing work of members and championing that for learning purposes across all of the membership. The operating environment, I know you will know this, but just to summarize, we have a government that are supportive of social housing, that talk about a decade of national renewal, and it's a real opportunity in that context to cement the role of members as community anchors and as place shapers and secure the support we need to do even more. But we know at the same time as saying that life isn't easy. We face lots of challenges as housing providers, competing priorities and limited capacity. And even though what we do is more known than it has been for a number of years, a lot of the place shaping role of our members is still often overlooked and misunderstood. And in that context, the custodians of PlaceShapers as a sector as PlaceShapers is, the work of PlaceShapers is more important than ever. And to play our part, we will continue to work in partnership with others, including resident allies. We'll continue to bring in new members and amplify the voice of our members wherever we can about the place shaping agenda that we hold so dear. The 3-year strategic plan takes us until 2029. Doesn't take a genius to work out that, does it, given it's 2026 now? But it's not a significant change of direction, and we intend to build on the successes of the previous plan. And I'm just going to say 3 things that I loved about the last plan that are going to carry on in the new plan, and then hand over to Catherine. The first thing that I want to say that I'm really proud of that we've done is that it was really important to me for PlaceShapers not to be an organization that was constantly having to get other people, politicians and what have you, to come and see what we did. I wanted them to know about us and contact us to say, can I come and see such and such an organization? And over the last couple of years, we've seen that with politicians and ministers contacting PlaceShapers to say, I'm going to be in such and such a place. Can I see such and such an organization? Or do you know someone who's doing this? And because of the connections we've got around the country, we've been able to facilitate a number of visits around the country. And that's been fantastic. Not only do the people, ministers visiting, get inspired by what they see, we know from talking to them and seeing what happens subsequently that those visits and what they see influences the decisions that they make in government. That's going to carry on as what you do and what PlaceShapers does gets more known, and that's to be celebrated. But even in that context, there's plenty of people who don't know enough about PlaceShapers, and we'll carry on contacting politicians and ministers to come and see what you're doing to spread the word about place shaping. So I'm really pleased about that. I'm also really pleased about the member visits that we've been doing over the last few years. In the last year, I was very fortunate in the last year. I was able to go and see more than a dozen members and what they're doing. But within that, 3 organizations, we hosted with them visits of members from across the country at Pioneer, Poplar Harker and Ongo. And it was nothing short of inspirational. People of all levels of the organization went to see what was being done. And I hope, and the feedback suggests this is what's happening, that it wasn't just a day out. It was an opportunity to see how another organization is doing something beyond just the housing management into place shaping activity. And then to take that knowledge, not to copy verbatim what they saw, unless that was appropriate, but to use the thinking and space to challenge their thinking about what does place shaping mean where they are, apply some of the thinking to come up with a solution that makes sense for them. So we've got more visits planned in the next year, which Catherine will talk about. Please encourage. It doesn't have to be chief execs, although chief execs are very welcome. Directors or managers, get them to come along and see what's happening. It's free, as you know, for PlaceShaper members. And the last thing I want to say that I've loved that will carry on is the chairs and chief execs meetings. They are a great opportunity to hear how other leaders are facing up to the challenges that we all have to address. Over the last year, we've had conversations about who our customers in the next 10 years are going to be, how we prioritize place shaping in an increasingly difficult economic environment, and also how we deal with some of the social tensions that we've seen over the last year or so. I have to say, I always learn something new listening to the members discussing their perspectives in those meetings, but I also come away encouraged that we're not doing this alone, that there are plenty of others facing pretty much the same issues that we're having to address, and often coming up with the same conclusions that we've come up with at Leeds Fed, my organisation. So that's doubly reassuring to me as a chief exec. I want to finish by saying a thank you as well. Thank you to board members. As you know, PlaceShapers has 3 excellent staff, but a board of 9 chief executives of housing association members, and they give up their time freely to promote the work of PlaceShapers and promote the work that you do. So what PlaceShapers does wouldn't happen without their involvement. So thank you, board members, for what you do. But for now, I'm going to say let's carry on putting place shaping at the heart of decision making and hear from Catherine about what place shaping is going to look like over the next 3 years. So Catherine, over to you for now.
Great, thanks so much, Matthew. And it's great to see so many of you here today. And I've loved your weather reports coming in. It's fantastic to know that you're all kind of out there joining us today. I've got some slides I'm going to talk through that will set a bit of context for the next 3 years, explain what we're hoping to achieve over the next 3 years, and then a little bit about how we're going to do it. And then I'll finish by talking about some immediate opportunities for you to get involved in your work and make the most of your membership of PlaceShapers. And then, as Matthew said, we'll leave lots of time at the end for like questions, reflections, offers of help. All of that very welcome today. Just to warn you before I pop the slides up, there's loads of photos in there. Just to kind of highlight some of the things that we've been doing particularly over the last year. I've just had a really quick look through who's joined us today. So some of you, Andy Royal at Hightown, will see yourself in these slides. So please forgive me if there are photos in there of you that catch you by surprise. But I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me as I go through these slides. Let me just find Matthew, can you nod if you can see that? Marvelous. Okay, so this is our plan for the next 3 years. So as Matthew said, it takes us to 2029, which we would expect there to be a general election in that year. So that's obviously part of the context for the plan. And our strategic plan over the next 3 years is called Shaping Places and Strengthening Communities. Just a little bit by way of context, and Matthew has touched on some of this, but what are the key drivers of our strategic plan? How have we arrived at the outcomes and ambition that I'm going to share with you today? So partly it's about what we see as our role, which is to support and enable you to fulfill your place shaping ambitions. And we're very deliberate about that. We are very much focused on your place shaping activities. And I'll say a little bit more about how we define that on the next slide. But we very much want our plan to reflect that unique role that we have. Obviously, we've been thinking about the operating environment and what some of those challenges and opportunities might be for the next 3 years. So I think, as Matthew said, the interest in place shaping is really high. but lots of challenges remain as to how you can really meet your own ambitions around place shaping. And then there's loads of stuff going on in the operating environment. We've seen lots of new partnerships forming. We've got devolution in some places, not others. We've got a new funding program. We've still got kind of a regulator where the consumer regulation is starting to bed in, but there's a conversation happening now about what about economic regulation? Does that need to change? So lots and lots happening in the operating environment that we want to reflect in the plan. But as I said, very much want to focus on the issues that are relevant to place shaping, like regeneration, for example. And then we've also kind of taken a little bit of a step back and thought about how did the last 3 years feel to us and to you? What are the things that we think went really well that we want to continue to do? What are the things that perhaps were useful and successful over the last 3 years, but we don't need to carry forward into the next 3 years? Those are the kind of key drivers behind the plan and how we've developed it. So I've said we want to really focus on place shaping, and we want to really focus on what you do in your communities and in your places to help those communities thrive. And it's really hard to define place shaping, right? Because it's there isn't one definition of it that works for everybody, because it's really about the unique challenges of a place and the unique opportunities of that place and the kind of partnerships and relationships that you have. So it's really hard to define place shaping. But over the course of the last sort of 18 months, we have been using language to describe place shaping, which we think you have found particularly helpful. And we found it helpful in the way that we talk about it to kind of politicians and stakeholders. But we've also found it a really helpful way of organising our own work. So when we talk about our learning programme for the next year, these are the themes that we will use to help construct that learning programme. So we talk about 3 aspects of place shaping. We talk about physical place shaping. That is very much about the kind of fabric of a place. So it's the homes that we build, it's the regeneration that we do, but it's also about the environment that we work in. So the kind of the green space, the infrastructure, all of those kind of things, that all sits in physical place shaping. And we talk about economic place shaping, so how we work, how you work to improve economic opportunities for your residents, communities, and that might be around employment and skills program. It might be about helping your residents access benefits. It might be about tenancy sustainment. It might be about encouraging business into the area or working in partnership to improve transport infrastructure so people can get to jobs. So all of those kind of things sit in economic place shaping. And then we talk about social place shaping. So how do you support your communities to be connected, healthy, and resilient? So what is your relationship like with the people who live in your homes and in your broader community? And how can you support them to be resilient, kind of healthy, connected communities? So those are the kind of 3 aspects of place shaping that we talk about. And as I said, there'll be bits in there that you think, yeah, that's what place shaping looks and feels like to us. And there'll be other bits where you think, well, that's actually not something which we prioritize. And we understand that. But as I said, we find it helpful to define place shaping just to give us a bit of a framework to organize our work and so we can describe the broader kind of role of place shaping to politicians and stakeholders. So what does the plan look like itself, and what are our overall ambitions for the next 3 years? And I should say, Matthew mentioned a study visit that we had last week to Ongo in Scunthorpe, and this is a picture from that visit. There's lots of pictures from our study visits on these slides. So our overall ambition for the next 3 years is that by 2029, we have enabled our members to develop their commitment to place shaping and be confident the investments and interventions they make will deliver for their community. So that's where we're trying to get to in the next 3 years. That's our overall kind of ambition statement. And then we've got 3 outcomes that sit beneath that, which I will touch on the following slides. But those 3 outcomes, the first is to champion and amplify your work so it is better understood and valued by key stakeholders. Because as Matthew said at the beginning, like we get to spend lots of time looking at the fantastic work you do, and we understand how necessary that work is and the difference that it makes. But we still think that that isn't properly understood by key stakeholders. We still think this kind of, when you talk about people don't really understand what it is or the difference, then isn't that local authority's job? There's still, I think, not as good an understanding as we would like to see of your place shaping work. So the first theme is around champion and amplify. The second is around sharing and strengthening practice, so you can make sure that your place shaping work is as effective as possible. So this is where the kind of sharing the learning, the case studies, exposing you to some of the place shaping work happening across the country. That's where that all sits in that share and strengthen practice outcome. And then the third is around influencing and enabling change. So that's all about trying to create the right kind of policy, funding, operating environment so you're better placed to deliver your own place shaping ambitions. So those are the kind of three overall themes. I'll talk through each of them in turn, but I'm not going to go into lots of detail because should say as soon as this webinar finishes, we will be sending you the plan. So you'll have the opportunity to look at it for yourselves and to really think about the detail and how it fits in and how you want to engage. But I'll talk through the themes and pick out some kind of highlights for us over the next 3 years. So the first, as I said, is around champion and amplifying. This is really about us shouting about your work in a way that we think will resonate with kind of stakeholders and the people that have some kind of influence over what you do. So this is partly about how we talk about place shaping. So the language that I used in the kind of three themes, I think perhaps getting a bit more consistency in how we describe place shaping, but in a way that allows you to talk about your own ambitions. I think that will be part of the kind of champion and amplify theme. We will continue to showcase what you do through the media, social media, events, platforms, where we get the opportunity to go and speak about what you do, or we get the opportunity to bring you into conversations to talk about your place shaping. That all helps kind of champion and amplify what you do. And then we want to bring residents into that conversation as well and make sure that they have a voice in talking about the difference your place shaping work has made to them. So where we're trying to get to with this is that in 3 years' time, stakeholders will be more proactively talking about what you do. It will become kind of naturally part of the conversation, and that broader kind of place shaping role that you will become a more kind of established way that we talk about the role of housing associations. So that's all in the kind of champion and amplify theme. Share and strengthen practice. As I said, this is all about us giving you the opportunity to learn from other members and other housing associations and potentially local authorities from learning about what's happening across the country so that you can bring some of that back into your own organisations. So I think over the last 3 years have done a really good job at showing you examples of place shaping. We've taken you to see different place shaping work across the country. We've shared case studies. We've had lots of kind of brilliant blogs and insight, and all of that will continue, and all of that is really useful and really powerful. I think what we haven't done quite as well over the last 3 years is to support you in some of those strategic conversations about place shaping. Like, how do I make a decision about what to invest in? What if I'm quite a big organization, quite geographically spread? What does good place shaping look like for me? What does it look like in a kind of rural context or in an urban context? I think what we haven't done is supported those conversations about strategic place shaping particularly well. So as well as continuing to do all the kind of showcasing kind of good practice around individual bits of place shaping, we also want to bring members together to support that conversation about strategic place shaping. And we're going to do that in two ways. We're going to set up a new member group, which we can say a little bit more about, and we will share with you after this webinar. So we're going to set up a new member group called Neighbourhoods and Place Network. And that is for those people who have that strategic responsibility for place shaping in their organisations. Now, in some small organisations, that might be the chief exec. In others, it might be the kind of executive director of place or neighbourhoods or region or something like that. Perhaps in some bigger organisations, it might be someone who has specific responsibility for a place or a neighbourhood within a bigger geographical context, but setting up that new member group, giving members access to each other, and colleagues who are carrying out that kind of strategic placement. That's one way we're going to help support those conversations. Another way we're going to try and do that is to set up some roundtables and bring members together who operate in similar contexts. And it might be that they're organisations from very different bits of the country, but feel quite similar. And the opportunities and challenges of place shaping also feel quite similar. So we've got, members who are quite big and have been through mergers and are now a bit more spread out, who are kind of thinking, how do I do place shaping in this context? What does my structure need to look like? What are the decisions that I need to make, and who's doing something similar? So there'll be kind of roundtable for those types of organisations, a roundtable for perhaps smaller organisations where you've got one or two big estates and you can kind of get your arm like, this is our place, and how do we do place shaping in this kind of context? Perhaps something for those who are operating in rural areas where, again, it feels quite different. You've maybe got kind of a few homes pepper potted in different villages. So we're going to bring some roundtables together to support organisations to have those conversations with housing associations that might feel kind of quite similar, but you might not know because they're in a very different part of the country. So that would be one way we try and support those conversations. And then we will continue to do our leaders events, which Matthew's already touched on. So for chairs and chief execs, a program of events across the country that allow you to come together and talk about the challenges and opportunities of place shaping from a leader's perspective. We'll continue with our networks, and then we will also have our annual conference again in November, which will be 2 days online. Been really successful the last few years. We've had huge numbers, fantastic speakers, so that will also continue. So lots and lots of different ways that we will attempt to kind of connect you with each other and with us to share and strengthen that practice around place shaping, both from a kind of case study visit perspective, but also that kind of more strategic perspective. And what we're trying to get to with this is that you can articulate the impact of your place shaping work in a way that resonates, and that you feel more confident that you are doing the things that will be effective because you've had the opportunity to learn from others. So that's the kind of share and strengthen practice theme. And there's a huge amount that sits underneath that, including a new learning program, which I'll touch on in one of the later slides. And then our final outcome is around influencing and enabling change. And as I said, that is to try and create that kind of funding, policy, operating environment so you're better placed to deliver your own place shaping ambitions. And partly this is about the relationship that we have with politicians. And obviously it links to other themes because we think the better politicians understand what you do and the better they can see the impact of what you do, the more likely they are to kind of to support it. So it links to all of the other themes, but there is some specific work we will be doing under this influencing and enabling change theme, including to prepare for the 2029 general election. How on earth are we already talking about a general election in 2029? Where has the time gone? But that will come around really quickly. So we're all ready to starting to think about what are the relationships and conversations we need between now and 2029. So there are some specific things that sit underneath this theme. So one of them is about shaping, I think in particular, the social and affordable homes programme to make sure that it supports you to deliver not just numbers, but the homes that would genuinely meet the housing need that you have in your area. So there's some work we'll be doing to try and kind of influence that programme, including through our development network, which Homes England come to. And then we also want to be trying to feed into the new social housing task force. And we know, the bidding is open. We know you're already thinking about how you spend some of that money. But we all know through previous programs, like they evolve over time, they become a bit more flexible, they're a bit more creative the more you move through a program. So what we want to do is stay close to that and continue to influence it so that it's not just focused on numbers, it's focused on homes that meet need. The second one I think on here is absolutely critical for us. We want to lead the conversation on how to support your place shaping work with evidence-based solutions, in particular on regeneration. Regeneration is going to be a big theme for us over the next 3 years because we think it is going to take that long to turn the conversation from something where there's a bit of flexibility here, there's a bit of money over there, which is where we are currently, into something which in 3 years' time feels like it's absolutely central to what the government is trying to achieve, particularly around this decade of national renewal. And we know there's lots of work going on around regen. We think the Northern Housing Consortium's work on their kind of renew inquiry is fantastic, but we really want to be part of that conversation, to be talking about the regeneration that's needed on a national scale. So that will be a big piece of work for us over the next 3 years, as I said. And I think one of our key outputs over the next kind of year to 18 months will be a really significant evidence-based, robust piece of work around what regeneration is happening, what's not happening, and what needs to change in those areas where regeneration is needed, but there isn't currently an opportunity to do it. So that regen will be a big piece of work for us. And then obviously continuing to build and maintain our relationship with politicians, as I said, including in the run up to the next general election. And within that as well, we've got a really good relationship with the regulator. It's obviously going to be a new chief exec of the regulator. I think we all, obviously everyone now knows who that is, but continuing to have that relationship with the regulator. I think, as I said at the beginning, we expect as the consumer regulation beds in, the regulator to be having a conversation about kind of what next for economic regulation. We think there's going to be a discussion paper coming up. I think we're going to facilitate some conversations between our members and the regulator so that as regulation changes, as it evolves, it better reflects and acknowledges your place shaping role. Because we think there is a danger with the pressure to build the 1.5 million homes and the pressure on the sector to build more, which we think is really important, but that there is a danger, I think, that some of that place shaping work sort of gets squeezed out a little bit and value for money just looks like building homes. So we think our role is to try and safeguard against some of that. So you will see us continuing to kind of build that relationship with the regulator, and where there are opportunities to shape regulation so it reflects your place shaping role, we will be doing that. So those are the 3 outcomes and a little bit of detail underneath each of them. But as I said, do take the opportunity to read the plan and go away and think about where you can get involved and what in particular you want to play a role in. I'm just going to touch on, before we open it up to questions, just a couple of other sort of reflections on the next 3 years and some of the specific activities and opportunities for you to get involved, as well as the 3 outcomes that I just described. We also have 3 cross-cutting priorities. I don't know if Soraya is on this call today, but this is one of my favourite pictures from the last sort of 18 months. This is one of the study visits that we had. This is to South Liverpool Homes and their kind of community garden, Grosbeak, which if you don't know about it, we've got loads of stuff on our website. Go and have a look at it. And also, it was a fantastic visit that you missed out on. It's not very helpful now, is it, to say you missed this brilliant thing that's gone? It's a good job there's more to come. But this is one of the volunteers at Grosbeak who sort of chatted to us on the day and showed us some of his work. And it was just a like really warm, kind of lovely experience. But our cross-cutting priorities, so one, to support an increase in resident voice and influence in social housing. So you'll have seen over the last sort of couple of years, our annual conference, for example, we've always opened those conferences with a resident. We always try and bring residents into the conversation where we can, whether it's a conference or a webinar or a case study. We always try and make sure that resident voices are central to our conversations around place shaping. So that will continue to be a priority for us. We want to develop our approach to using evidence to demonstrate the impact of place shaping. Some of you will have seen that Great Well Homes, in partnership with PlaceShapers, published a fantastic toolkit on place shaping and how you can measure the impact of what you're doing. We will share that tool with you again, but us also thinking about how do we describe the kind of collective impact of what you do in a way which is really compelling? So that'll be a big kind of cross-cutting theme over the next 3 years. How do we use evidence to better kind of tell the story and demonstrate impact? And then we want to encourage and support partnerships and collaboration on place shaping in the sector and with other partners. There's this huge agenda around devolution, but even in parts of the country where there isn't currently devolution or a combined authority, there is still a move to do more in partnership, and we want to kind of support those where we can. So this, I mentioned us doing some roundtables earlier. One of the things we might look at is bringing organisations together who are starting to set up those partnerships or who are thinking about how do we work across boundary to really develop our approach to place shaping. So we want to support that over the next 3 years. Those are our three cross-cutting priorities. So resident voice, evidence, partnerships. And then in terms of how we will work, we think there is a real opportunity over the next 3 years and in the run up to the next general election, as Matthew said in his introduction, to really cement your role as place shapers and the impact that you can have and how that contributes in particular to this kind of ambition of a decade of national renewal. But it isn't going to be easy because there is a huge focus at the moment on the 1.5 million homes, and we understand that. So it is a real challenge for us to continue to build the understanding of place shaping. And we know it's hard for you to do that place shaping work, right? Lots of you are having to make really difficult decisions about what to prioritize. Your business plans are still under a huge amount of pressure. There's not lots and lots of capacity to do place shaping kicking about the sector. So if we are going to achieve our ambition by 2029, then we're going to have to think really carefully about how we as a small organisation can have the impact that we want to have that will benefit you. So deepening our reach and impact is going to be really important to us over the next 3 years if we're going to meet our ambitions and support you in your place shaping role. And how we're going to do that is we're going to reinforce what you do. We want to continue to use our networks to hear your stories, to hear your case studies, so that we can shout about them, so that we can really talk about the difference that you are making in your community. So reinforcing your voice will continue to be really important to us. We want to deepen our relationship with you across a range of different roles. We think we've got a pretty good relationship with, our leaders in our sector, the chairs and chief execs. We've got fantastic networks. We've really good relationship with development directors through our development network. But we think there's lots of you in our member organisations with really good stories to tell and a really strong contribution to make to our work that we're just not reaching at the moment. So I mentioned we were going to set up the Place and Neighbourhoods group because we think there's a whole bunch of people in our membership who are making the strategic decisions about place shaping that we just don't know very well. So we want to deepen our relationship with you across different roles. We will continue where we can to work in partnership with others and with our resident allies. So we cannot do what we're intending to do on our own. We will need to do lots of it in partnership, and that might be with organisations, that have a similar membership base to us or are working on a similar issue. But where we can, we will always do things in partnership. But that resident ally voice is also really important to us. And then, of course, we need to remain as Place Shapers a strong, viable, efficient organisation with your support and with your encouragement. And as a small organisation, we think incredibly efficient, and we do think we really make the most of our resources to deliver for you, but we will need to continue to think about how we do that over the next 3 years. Whenever I put these plans in front of Matthew, he's always like, you do know there's only 3 of you, don't you, that work in Place Shapers? And we do know there is only 3 of us. But I don't think of it as 3 people. I think of it as 90 fantastic place shaping housing associations out there. But we are conscious that we do need to remain, as Place Shapers, an efficient, strong organisation. I mentioned our learning programme. That's a huge part of what we do. We have just published a new learning programme for the next 12 months. So this sits in the kind of share and strengthen practice theme. We've got 12 different topics that we're going to cover over the next 12 months. They all fit into the kind of social, physical, or economic place shaping themes. So from May this year to the end of April next year, we've got 12 different themes that we're going to cover. Each of those themes will have a study visit, a podcast, or a webinar, and then some member insight that sits underneath it. We'll share this link with you, but please do go away and have a look at the learning program and think about what you want to engage in. These are aimed at people across our membership working in lots and lots of different roles. Within that, as Matthew said, we've had some fantastic study visits over the last year. We've taken members to see some brilliant things, and people have come away kind of challenged and inspired with new networks and new ideas to take back to their own organisation. So we've got a new programme of study visits over the course of the next year. It starts with MSV in Manchester at the end of July, and then we've also got visits lined up for WHG and Peabody. So where you see those visits coming up, do take the opportunity to get involved. Some of them do sell out quite quickly because we obviously can't take 100 people to see MSV, but we can take, a good chunk of our membership, so do get in quick. So have a look at that learning program, think about what you want to engage in the next 12 months and get involved. I think I've probably covered all of this. This is our brilliant study visit to Poplarka. Look how happy people are and engaged and inspired, and if that doesn't encourage you to get involved, then nothing I say is going to really come close to that. But I think I've covered all this. New learning program, study visits, the first to MSV in July. That is now open for registration. As I said, we'll share the link with you. You can book onto that. Program of leaders events, which Matthew's talked about, those are on the 8th of July, the 7th of October, and the 13th of January. They are all open for registration now, even the one in January next year, because we know how busy our leaders are, and we have tried to plan those in for the course of the next year so you don't miss out. So those are all currently open for registration. The new member group that I talked about on the Neighbourhoods and Place network, there is a link on our website for you to join that network. So have a think about who from your organisation might want to join that. And then we've got roundtables on effective place shaping, which I've talked about, which are coming up. We'll share more details of that with you soon. So over the net, here you go, Andy. Here's me. That's Andy on one side, me on the other, and our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, in the middle. One of the highlights of the last year. So as Matthew said at the start, we think our role is to be the custodians of place shaping, and we think that's going to be more important than ever over the next 3 years. And together we will ensure that place shaping is a defining feature of how communities are supported, investing in, and sustained. And that is it. Questions, reflections, tell us how you want to get involved. I will stop sharing. And we are very happy to hear from you.
Catherine, that was brilliant. Thank you for that. There have been a few comments coming in as you've been talking. You won't have a chance to read them, so I'll just mention a couple of them, let you catch your breath, and then perhaps you can pick up some of the comments in terms of the question element of those when I've gone through them. So a couple of people, Ali and Emma, expressing interest in the neighbourhood and place network. And really, behind Emma's comment, which perhaps you could make an observation about, are there opportunities for people beyond just the chief exec or exec teams to get involved in what's happening in those conversations? And Emma makes the very valid point that it's often the people at different levels of the organization than the chief exec or exec directors that know what's most needed and necessary in the areas that we all work, and how can we involve those people in those conversations. So perhaps you could say something about how we can encourage people at all levels to get involved.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We don't have lots and lots of infrastructure around engagement and place shapers because we are really small. We don't have lots and lots of groups for different things. So we do have, as we've said, the program of leaders events over the next year, but we've also got the new Neighbourhoods and Place network. There is a link to that on our website. So do go and have a look at that and think if that's right for you. We've also got other networks that you can get involved in. So we've got Development Network, Sustainability Network, Comms Network, Public Affairs Network, and Chairs Network. So there is some infrastructure around engagement that you can get involved in. I would say our study visits are for everybody. There'll be of the three that we've got coming up over the next year, there might be, one that really stands out for you that you think actually that really is going to resonate with me. I'm going to go to that one. Um, but we have a real mix of people coming to those visits, and that is really the beauty of it. And although there's usually a topic that the visit is centered around, it covers a huge amount of ground. So if you are interested in place shaping or brilliant organizations, I would say those visits are a real kind of great way to get involved. And then just have a look at the learning program. Think about, where we've got podcasts or webinars coming up. Do they feel particularly relevant for your role? And if you've got the other thing I would say, if you've got like an interesting story to tell about place shaping or something that you want to ask us about, like just get in touch. Like we're a really accessible organization. If you've done a brilliant piece of place shaping and you want us to shout about it, or you're stuck on like because we know our members really well. If you sort of get stuck on something, we can always put you in touch with someone who can help as well. We've got a really good understanding of what our members are up to. So I would say just get in touch. Like there aren't lots and lots of formal ways for you to get engaged, but we are a really accessible organisation, and I will talk about place shaping until the cows come home. So if you ever want to chat about anything, like we're always here for your kind of thoughts and ideas.
Catherine, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I just echo those comments. The benefit, one of the beauties of PlaceShapers membership, or as Simon helpfully has pointed out, more a partnership than a membership. I like that distinction, Simon. Is that the fee that you pay is a one-off fee. So everything that we do is free effectively thereafter. So the annual conference, don't feel like you can only have your chief exec or exec directors go to those. If there's a session you like, let come along to it. You're welcome to come along to that and any of the other events as well, for all the reasons that we've said. And from a comms point of view, tell us, and I'm not sure how widely known, maybe you can say something about this in a second, Catherine, how widely known the comms network is. If you've got a story that you're proud of, tell us about it so we can shout it to everybody, and not only shout it at that moment in time, but we can add it to our list of things that we know are going on in the country, so that when, as is increasingly happening, ministers or others say, hey, I'm going to be in X part of the country, I'd like to see someone doing such and such a thing. If we've got what you're doing in the back of our minds, we will be in touch with you to see if we can co-host a visit with whoever said politician is to come and see what you're doing. So there's all sorts of benefits and reasons to get involved. So Catherine, do you just want to say something about the comms group, and then there's other questions about politicians that we'll come back to?
Yeah, so the comms network, we have regional comms coordinators. There's a list on our website, and again, we can share the link with you. So every region will have a kind of comms coordinator. It's either Joanna from PlaceShapers or someone from a comms team in that region, and they are our sort of like conduit to comms people across the country. So they will regularly communicate with comms teams in that region, and we'd like it to be more of a kind of two-way conversation. Like we will tell you what we're up to, but they are also someone that you can go to and tell us what you're up to. So we want it to be more of a two-way conversation. And we are thinking about how we build a more inclusive comms network so everybody working in comms knows who we are and who to get in touch with. But the regional coordinators are the best way of kind of getting involved. And we're really grateful to our regional comms coordinators because they do an amazing job and they do it kind of as part of their day job. So hop on the website, have a look at who they are, get to know your regional comms coordinator, and they would give you the opportunities to tell us your story and to get involved in our work.
Thanks, Catherine. There's a really interesting question here from Chris Middleton about the political view of place shaping versus larger organizations, and an observation that some of the larger organizations have been responsible for media attention that's not necessarily been good in recent years. So the question is, are, Catherine, we seen politically as a respective voice, or do the politicians really only want the big developers to deliver the numbers of units?
So we are definitely seen as a respected voice. So we have a really good relationship with politicians. As we've shown, we met we met the Prime Minister last year, and it's great to meet the Prime Minister. But what's even better is to build a relationship with his team in the Number 10 Visits team, so that where there are things that he wants to come and see or that they want to know about, they know who we are and they know that we can swing into action for them. So, but we also have a really good relationship with Matthew Pennycook, for example. He will often ring up and say, "What does PlaceShapers think about this?" So we are definitely still a respected voice. And for us, it's absolutely like not about size. It's about your ethos, it's about your willingness to learn, it's about your willingness to share. It is really about you wanting to do the best you can from your communities and us being the place that kind of supports you in doing that. So, yes, I would say we are a strong, credible voice with government, but we're also a network that we want people to come and to share and to learn and to join. Um, but we are also still small, so we don't have lots and lots of relationships with politicians, but we are definitely a voice that is known and is credible. And we're trying to extend that beyond housing as well. So there were a couple of pictures on the slides, um, and Matthew touched on this as an introduction, where we've done visits with Katie White, who is the climate minister in Ed Miliband's team. She didn't know anything about the role of housing associations in kind of climate resilience, nature-based recovery, how we work with our communities to kind of improve access to green space. So we took her to two different visits over the course of the last year, one to South Yorkshire and one to Southway in Manchester. And she was kind of blown away by the work that they do. So we're trying to build relationships with politicians in a range of different kind of roles because place shaping is so broad. So we are definitely still a credible voice, but I think we can extend that beyond housing. And there is a focus on the 1.5 million homes, but there is also a focus on a decade of national renewal. And I think our job is to say, yes, we can contribute to the 1.5 million homes, but our contribution is much broader than that. And if you want a decade of national renewal, for example, I don't think you can do that without regeneration and place shaping. And I think it's our job to make that really obvious to government.
Yeah, some really kind comments from Joe and Lyndon about support for the Neighbourhood and Place Network. I think that's going to be really popular, Catherine. And I'm glad, Linda, that our enthusiasm for what we do comes across. We are passionate about that, and there's no doubt about it. A really interesting question from Lucy Wines, Catherine, about place shaping's position on investment in existing homes. Do we anticipate this element of physical place shaping as part of our messaging? I suppose I'll just make one comment and then Catherine can add to that. We're very clear that largely because of the capacity we've got with 3 staff and board members who also have jobs, that there's a limit to what we can do. So there's lots of things that go on with the Fed and CIH and Northern Housing Consortium and others that we support, but don't do a lot of work on beyond supporting it because we haven't got the resources to do. Our focus is entirely around issues to do with place shaping. So to the extent that investment in existing homes is connected to place shaping, we absolutely are committed to that and see that probably as part of the broader regeneration question, a big part of what we say, but we won't be talking about it in isolation, not because we don't think it's important, but simply because we have to limit what we can do to the capacity we've got to be able to deliver things. So that's my sort of starter for 10 on that. Catherine, do you want to just embellish that a little?
No, I mean, I think that's exactly right, Matthew. It will be part of the conversation on regen because, part of the challenge is that many of the homes that we own are coming to the end of their life. We will need to significantly regenerate them so that they're fit for the future. So I think it's part of the conversation on regen. Um, I think there are things that we will want to influence on. So where we think the government needs more support to ensure its homes are kind of fit for the future, then we will be doing that. We're not, for example, they're going to be doing lots of work on how you might meet the new decent home standard or the new minimum energy efficiency standards. We don't have the kind of skills and capacity to do that in place shapers. Others are doing it really well. And we will leave them to, and I think it's the same for us around building safety. There are issues around building safety and funding, for example, where we would want to add our voice to the the direction that the sector is trying to influence. And it's really helpful for us to be able to do that because we are a credible voice for government. We are seen as a bit different. So there are things that we will lend our voice to, but we will not be doing anything active on. So like building safety, energy efficiency, decent homes, those are the kinds of things that we will leave to others because we think there's fantastic work already going on around that.
Yeah, agree with that. A great question, though. Thanks, Lucy. A really helpful point from Philip Paramore about who wrote the blog for us following the Pioneer visit about the importance of customers and tenants in the work that PlaceShapers do. As a tenant and chair, he's also referring to other tenant board members that are embarking on a learning program, readying them for a succession plan for chair and vice chair at some point in the future. Thanks for your contributions, Philip. We see customers as absolutely central to what we do. The very nature of place shaping is about for the benefit of customers, and who better to influence and have a voice into that than customers at the myriad of events that we've got. And glad to have you involved, Philip, and maybe that's something we can think about, whether there's an opportunity for us to do something about the learning for new tenants or succession planning with tenants in some of what we're doing. So we'll pick that up outside the meeting, Philip. So thank you for that. Just looking and see what other comments we've got. Simon's had to duck out. Comments about compliments about the plans. Question from Kat from Leeds Fed. Are the plans to engage with the shadow cabinet? So that's a good question. How do we make sure, with an election looming, with if prediction polls or anything to go by, the potential for another prime minister to be in situ, how do we ensure that our relationship with a successive government, a future government, is put in on its best footing by maintaining connection with other political parties? That's a difficult one to answer, so I'm going to ask Catherine to answer that one.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. There's the question from Jackie as well about regen and social and economic elements as well as physical improvement. And I think just on Jackie's question, like absolutely yes. Like for us, regeneration is definitely about the homes and the quality of the homes, but it is also about those communities and the places and like what does the fabric of the place look like? Is there green space? Does it feel safe? Does it support a reduction in antisocial? But there are places for kids to play. Is it near work? Is it like it's all of those kind of like regeneration, done well can address all of those kind of things. And it's a shame that Simon from Pioneer has ducked out because we often use Castlevale as an example of like what regeneration done like 20, 30 years ago is still doing now because it was set up in a way that was kind of thoughtful about the future. So absolutely yes, Jackie, very much so. And in response to Kat's questions, I mean, we absolutely will have to, Kat, think about how we engage politically and think about who are the people that we want to influence between now and the general election, and how do we best go about that. And some of it we will definitely be seeking to build relationships with like key housing spokespeople in different parties, but we will also need to be talking to our members about what are the kinds of conversations that you're having locally, what are the kinds of messages that's helpful for you to be talking about when you're talking to your local candidates. Who do our members know in kind of positions of potential power that can support us to meet people and talk about place shaping. So we will need a really solid kind of political engagement strategy that takes us through the next 3 years. And it's one of the things we'll be developing under the new plan. We just don't have it yet. But I think it's a really good point about who we engage with and how we do that.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see other comments in there. Lovely to see a comment from Claire, our previous vice chair, who sadly was time barred from having to stay on, stood down recently. So good to see you or read from you, Claire. Nice to speak to big oaks from the PlaceShapers past. We're coming towards the end now. I'm conscious of time. Jackie, that was a really good point about regeneration. We'll make sure that's incorporated. I wonder whether we should just move to a sort of final reflection, Catherine. As far as I'm concerned, PlaceShapers is a great organisation to be connected with. I give a lot of time to it. It does things that I think are really important for my organisation, and from when I talk to chief execs of other organizations are important to them too. And collectively, I think we have a bigger impact together than we do as the sum of our individual parts. I often talk about using local stories for national influence, and that's what PlaceShapers is very, very good at doing. We've got an amazing staff team led by Catherine, who do an amazing job. And there are lots of challenges coming up that we're all going to face, but I think this is the right approach to us helping our members prepare for facing up to those challenges in the way that we can from a place shaping perspective. So I think the future is very bright from a place shaping point of view. And thank you very much for being involved, because it only works because people get involved. So look forward to working with you over the next 3 years. Catherine, anything you want to say as a final reflection?
No, just thank you to everybody for coming today. And by way of next steps, this afternoon we will be sending all our members a copy of the strategic plan itself, a link to the learning program, and links for things that you can immediately get involved in, like the MSV visit, like registering for the new group. So please look out for that from us. I'd love to see loads of you in Manchester at the end of July. You know, it's the summer, there's fantastic work that MSV are gonna share with us, and you'll get the opportunity to kind of network and be with each other. So do think about that event. And if you're a chair or a chief exec, do register for one of our 3 leaders events over the course of the next year. And as we start to kind of promote the activities in our learning program, if things, stories you want to tell or things that you want to get involved in, just let us know. We will always find space for your stories in our program and your good practice in our program. So the things you're really proud of, just get in touch. So yeah, more from us this afternoon for you to go away and look at, and yeah, just keep in touch. And we're really excited about what we might be able to achieve over the next 3 years, but we know we can't do it on our own, and we know we need to do it in partnership with you. And also we know it's not going to be easy. You know, there's likely to be political churn. As we've said, we know you still face lots of challenges, but we think collectively we can make a real progress towards putting place shaping on the map in the next 3 years.
Yeah, fantastic. And at 14:58, with thanks for all your messages, kind messages at the end, we can wrap this up 2 minutes early, which gives you time to go and have a cup of tea
and a
before
hot
your 3
knob.
o'clock meeting. So thanks ever so much. It's going to end very quickly in the way these things do. Have a good rest of your day. Bye for
Cheers
now.
all. Bye.